17 has that feel like it's all the remainders of the 16 previous goals. But it actually has a more important integrating factor for the previous 16 SDGs. The means of implementation affect multiple SDGs. 3 main means of implementations are introduced. First is the issue of finance. As we have witnessed in this region, finance has spillover effects that actually has contagion affecting multiple countries. This is a resilience issue. Finance is a means of development and is part of the SDG 17. Likewise, trade has various direct implications. It can have positive implications in most cases or adverse ones where there are spillover effects to other countries. Again, a resilience issue in trade. Trade can really, and as we have seen, promote growth, but it can really hinder growth for countries that are facing adverse trade conditions. The third element, and the most innovative, most challenging, most exciting, is the issue of science, technology, and innovation. Innovation is affecting the SDGs and many SDGs in a variety of ways, some positive, some negative. We now worry about frontier technology and the adverse effect it may have on the labor market, but it also may bring positive effects on governance, on education, on health, on the inequality of opportunity as a whole. It perhaps possesses the greatest impact, technological impact, on the environmental factors. Summing all this under SDG 17 are 2 distinct pillars. One is data and statistics, the other is partnership. When it comes to SDG data, the region is faced with too few good quality SDG indicators, and for certain countries, very little. We have indicators in Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, roughly a third each. 80 Tier 1 indicators roughly exist in our region. But when we look at, for all countries, all 58 countries, we come down to about 30 SDG indicators. There is a need to certainly improve both the quality and quantity of SDG indicators to create a good baseline for 2030. That is a central feature of SDG 17. The final and probably the most important one is the issue of partnership. Clearly, the Sustainable Development Goals are a really ambitious statement by the countries and member states. It cannot be done by any one entity, any one country, any one official institution, government alone. It requires not only the private sector, not only civil society, but the public as a whole in terms of behavioral changes and awareness. That's what SDG 17 is about. How do we create the right partnership to achieve the 2030 agenda? How do we use means of implementation, aggregate demand curve shifts when it's financial, when it's trade, aggregate supply shifts if it's technology and innovation, to help achieve the Sustainable Development Goal agenda. I think that's what the SDG 17 issues and platform is about, and I look forward to a very fruitful discussion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. With this, we will now move on to hear statement of selected ESCAP member countries on what they are doing to advance progress on SDG 17 and means of implementation in their country, including examples of actions they are undertaking to advance specific targets under SDG 17. First among these, I am pleased to introduce His Excellency Mr. Tajuddin Jurazoda, Deputy Minister of Economic Development and Trade of the Republic of Tajikistan. Mr. Jurazoda, please.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to be here with you. Taking to the opportunity, I'd like to express my gratefulness to the Secretariat of UN ESCAP for the great job, perfect arrangements, as well as warm participation environment. I'm here to inform you about the progress my country experiencing the SDGs implementation. Participation at this very important event is indeed crucial and significant for us to learn more about the global development processes and comment and share ideas from our point of view. Tajikistan is a very young economy facing development challenges. My country has been actively implementing its development agenda aligned with the SDGs, and I'm going to brief you on the progress with much focus on the SDG 17. After the completion of our development strategy for the period till 2015, which was covering most of the MDGs, in 2016 we approved new national development strategy for the period to 2030s, aligned with SDGs. Tajikistan is as a landlocked country with more than 93% of mountains, has country-specific challenges. Hence, for the coming long-term development period, 4 priority directions have been identified as focus areas. These are ensuring energy security and efficient use of electricity, moving out of the communication deadlock and transformation the country into a transit country, ensuring food security and access of population to quality nutrition, expanding productive employment. As for the SDGs, aligning with the national development strategies and programs, it should be noted that more than 70% of the SDGs are reflected in 10 national level development strategies, and 90% of the sub-targets of the SDGs covered by 27 national level sectoral documents. The SDG 17 has been clearly aligned in the National Development Strategy, namely indicating the move out of the communication deadlock and transformation of the country into a transit country. The expansion of international cooperation and provision of support to strengthen national capacities in the field of water supply and sanitation. I would like to also mention that the nationalization and localization of the SDGs are being carried out through the national level strategies and local development programs. Shifting from the conceptual approaches to the real implementation mechanism, I'd like to draw your attention to the following regulatory tools and mechanisms. The law on investments and relevant bylaws to support foreign investments are in place to ensure and establish comfortable environment for the business, both external and domestic. We have got the revised tax code. We developed law on public-private partnership, which is now successfully being implemented. We do have 4 free economic zones with certain regulatory platform. In terms of promoting trade, Tajikistan is an active member of WTO since 2013, and it has programs for import substitutions as well as for export promotions. Having the time limit, I would like to finally inform you about that the innovative industrial development scenario envisaged in the National Development Strategy, the answer how serious is the item we apply throughout the national economy, including the digitalization of the economy. The Sustainable Development Agenda demands new approaches to knowledge and skills development for all actors. Development progress requires holistic thinking, moving beyond separate mandates and structures, and exploring linkages between different thematic issues. The Agenda 2030 requires an issues-based modus operandi, fostering new partnership to identify key problems and opportunities, leveraging diverse means of implementation, and facilitating joint action to ensure progress and maximize results. In this context, lifelong learning must be seen as a key component of personal as well as organizational development. Ladies and gentlemen, I stop here and am prepared to answer your questions you may wish to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jorazoda, for your interesting statement. I am now pleased to introduce Ms. Shirin Sandhu, Director, Global Development Policy, Multilateral Development and Finance Division, Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Australia. Ms. Sandhu, please.
Thank you, Chair. Ministers, Excellencies and colleagues, on behalf of Australia, I would like to thank the Economic and Social Commission for the Asia Pacific for hosting this valuable regional forum. I also extend that thanks to Dr. Akhtar and the ESCAP Secretariat for their continuing commitment to the 2030 Agenda and support of Member States. As Australia moves into the final stages of preparing our first voluntary national review to be presented at the HLPF in July, this regional forum is an important opportunity to share our experiences and to learn from our neighbours. 2 years on from our commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals and the Addis Agenda, and 1 year since the regional roadmap was adopted, preparing our VNR has given us the opportunity to consider both our progress and our challenges. For Australia, the SDGs are a reflection of our values and ambitions. They are the contemporary manifestation of a fair go for all. The 2017 Foreign Policy White Paper supports Australia's commitment to the 2030 Agenda. It highlights that the 2030 Agenda is not just for the government, but it's for all Australians, and we will demonstrate this in our VNR. It also outlines how we will work with partners to achieve the SDGs by leveraging all sources of finance for development. Chair, we see our VNR as a whole of Australia report, not an Australian government report. Therefore, we have consulted with civil society, academia, the private sector, and across every level of government in Australia. We have gathered over 300 case studies highlighting the work done at home and overseas to progress the 2030 Agenda. The VNR shows that the private sector is contributing to the SDGs both in Australia and abroad. Leading Australian businesses engaged with and contributed to SDG outcomes early through responsible business practices, new business models, and community investment. Australia has benefited from free trade and transparent and open markets. We recognise that it is our responsibility to help others, particularly in our region, to benefit from these systems as well. Australia is contributing to the Private Infrastructure Development Group, which draws on private sector expertise to blend public funds with private sector investment for infrastructure projects in developing countries. Every dollar contributed by member countries leverages approximately $17 in private sector capital. We have seen partnerships develop between new allies to overcome regional challenges. For example, Monash University in Melbourne is working with Australian water corporations, universities across the region, and global non-for-profits to integrate sustainable water-sensitive infrastructure in Suva and Makassar. We have created the Business Partnerships Platform, the BPP, to accelerate collaboration between business, government, and civil society. An Indian-focused BPP is currently open for applications in agribusiness, health, and energy and resources. Successful applicants must show their proposal benefits gender equality and women's empowerment. To know whether we are making a difference, we must collect data to assist in telling our story. In our VNR, the data story has presented challenges. With 232 SDG indicators, it has been a whole-of-government effort to identify what data sources we hold and where they match the indicators. Gathering and utilizing better data assists us to make better programming decisions. At the most fundamental level, reliable data on and official registration of births, deaths, and other important events in people's lives is crucial to measuring our development progress. Australia is proud to support ESCAP's work on civil registration and vital statistics. In February 2017, the Foreign Minister launched a $9.5 million partnership between the Department of Foreign Affairs and the International Women's Development Agency and the Australian National University to develop the Individual Deprivation Measure, the IDM. The IDM is a gender-sensitive, multi-dimensional measure of individual poverty which overcomes some of the limitations of current household measures of poverty, which can hide the disadvantage of the mother behind the apparent better status of the family. While not directly aligned to SDG indicators, it will help tell a holistic story about whether development efforts are working for the furthest behind. It also underlines our commitment to gender equality, a high priority for the Australian aid program. Chair, Australia is also supporting countries in the Pacific improve their data collections. Over the past 5 years, Australia has provided approximately $12 million to support the Pacific Community Statistics for Development Division's implementation of a 10-year Pacific Statistics Strategy. This strategy is an ambitious regional approach to develop national statistics capacity, including for sex disaggregated data and regional coordination in the Pacific, which includes improved data to measure progress against the SDGs. This is an important time for the Pacific. The World Bank and the Asia Development Bank funding is at an all-time high in the region, and we need to work together to make the most of these opportunities for quality and sustainable development. We look forward to working with regional bodies, including the ASCAP sub-regional office, to achieve the 2030 Agenda and regional roadmap in the Pacific. Our 2017 Foreign Policy White Paper affirms the importance of the SDGs in providing the framework for global efforts and notes the opportunities that the SDGs provide to share our experience with the partners across the world. They challenge us and they hold us accountable. We look forward to continuing our work with other member states and the ESCAP Secretariat to achieve the 2030 Agenda in the Asia Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sandhu, for your interesting statement. I am now pleased to introduce Mr. Shimi Sherang, Director, National Statistics Bureau, Bhutan. Mr. Sherang, please.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to join my fellow panelists in thanking ESCAP for hosting the 5th Asia-Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. It is an honor for me to inform that the Royal Government of Bhutan has always recognized that data is important and critical for the formulation, implementation, and monitoring of the policies and programs. Reliable data is required to identify development issues, inform policy design, and measure development targets, including the targets of Sustainable Development Goals. In Bhutan, the National Statistics Bureau, as the custodian and the central authority of official data, is identified as the nodal agency for SDG-related data. Assessment of the SDG indicators and their alignment to the existing data and statistics in Bhutan reveals that 34% are available, 27% are partially available, and 39% are not available. In 2017, Bhutan conducted the second population and housing census, through which we collected comprehensive information on household asset ownership, income and debt status, social cohesion, and psychological well-being, over and above the standard population and housing census questions on demographic characteristics, health, education, employment, migration, and housing amenities. The 2017 population housing census data would be a primary source of disaggregated data for the SDG goals related to socio-economic sectors. This data would be used to identify marginalized households and define service areas for targeted household poverty reduction and rural economy advancement programs to fulfill the central commitment of Leave No One Behind. On the environment front, we made a humble beginning by publishing the first annual environmental accounts report in 2017. We are working hard to transform this modest beginning into a robust and comprehensive annual environmental accounts report. Currently, we are working closely with ESCAP in developing waste and energy accounts. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to highlight, among others, 3 important initiatives that we undertook in the year 2017 to advance data requirements for the national development programs and the SDGs. The first one is, with support of the UN Development Assistance Framework for 2014 to 2018, we conducted the National Data Ecosystem Mapping. The National Data Ecosystem Mapping evaluated the data gaps, availability and credibility, and assessed the statistical system and the capacity to address the gaps. The study identified data gaps, inconsistencies, and timeliness as one of the setbacks. These limitations are due to weak coordination, absence of harmonized standards and compliance guidelines, lack of capacity, and failure to leverage readily available information and communication technologies for statistical purposes. The second initiative was that the Royal Civil Service Commission of Bhutan conducted the organizational development exercise of the National Statistics Bureau to streamline the national statistical system. The exercise was carried out with the aim to improve coordination, address inconsistencies in data, and circumvent duplication of efforts. The organizational development exercise resulted in the restructuring of the National Statistics Bureau to mitigate the challenges identified in the National Data Ecosystem Mapping Report. I am pleased to share that Bhutan and the UNDP Country Office has identified data and data use as one of the 4 priority areas for the UNDP Country Program 2019 to 2023. Our priorities are to strengthen the statistical, legal, and policy framework, develop statistical standards and compliance guidelines aligned with international standards, methodologies, concepts, and definitions, targeted capacity building, and developing an ICT infrastructure to facilitate data collection, management, and dissemination. Finally, we would like to reaffirm our commitment to fulfilling the data requirements for the SDGs, and we remain optimistic that the UN agencies and the development partners would continue to help us in addressing the systemic issues related to data and statistics in Bhutan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sereng, for your interesting statement. I am now pleased to introduce Mr. Ineom Kim, Assistant Director, Statistics, Korea Policy Indicator Research, Republic of Korea. Mr. Kim, please.
I'm sorry, there was a change in the name, so this is the correct.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Kim is not here, so I would like to introduce Ms. Ji Hoem Park, Minister and Permanent Representative to ESCAP, Ms. Park, please.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Korean government, I would like to thank UN ESCAP for organizing this meaningful forum. It is indeed my honor and privilege to have a chance to share our thoughts on the Asia-Pacific region's sustainable development. The region is facing crucial challenges, including an aging society, urbanization, air and water pollution, and climate change. The fundamental way to deal with these challenges is building resilience. Given this, the main theme of this forum, transformation toward a sustainable and resilient society, is all the more pertinent and timely. As the head of delegation from the Republic of Korea, I would like to share with you an overview of my country's effort to achieve the sustainable development goals, both at home and in the region. The Republic of Korea believes that in order to improve measuring of national progress toward sustainable development, a country needs performance indicators which can better reflect its own domestic circumstances. This is one of the major lessons Korea learned from its participation in the Voluntary National Review in 2016. These reflections have led the Korean government to embark on the task of developing the KSDGs. Incorporating SDGs into existing domestic indicators on sustainable development. The Korean government expects that the entire set of KSDGs and their indicators can be fully established within 2018. We hope that the KSDGs will serve as an effective tool for Korea to meet challenges the country focusing on, including gender equality and job creation. The Republic of Korea also believes that achieving the SDGs requires innovative approaches that fully utilize the latest technologies. An example of these approaches is a smart city in which traditional urban problems like pollution and heavy traffic are dealt with through information and communications technology, as well as the Internet of Things. In order to promote smart cities at home and abroad, Korean government revised its Ubiquitous City Act for the new Smart City Act and launched the Special Committee for the Smart City in 2017. Often this legal and policy framework, the Korean government is developing both old and new cities into the smart ones. With their unique characteristics and challenges duly reflected. We believe this effort will contribute to achieving Goal 6 on water and sanitation and Goal 11 on sustainable cities. In tandem with those such domestic efforts, the Republic of Korea is supporting developing countries to achieve the SDGs. The Korean government has incorporated the SDGs in the country's policy guidelines on development cooperation, including the second midterm strategy for development. We are also working on improving the development cooperation result management framework, systematically linking the SDGs, their target and indicators to our project and programs. With this approach, the Republic of Korea is willing to strengthen partnership with countries in the Asia-Pacific region. In tune with the spirit of its new Southern Policy Initiative, the Korean government hopes to build in this region a people-centered, peaceful community, which countries share prosperity together and no one is left behind. In order to realize the vision, the Korean government is committed to increasing its ODA volume, with the total budget for development cooperation reaching record high $2.8 billion in 2018. Around half of the financial support will be channeled to partners in the Asia-Pacific region. With our partnership with multi-stakeholders, however, such effort will fall well short of achieving the SDGs in the region. Private finance should be leveraged in order to achieve the SDGs. Given that a rapid and sustained increase in ODA is unlikely to happen, the Korean government will therefore serve as a catalyst to mobilize the private sector, encouraging private investment by re-risking and promoting innovative financing solutions. At the same time, the Republic of Korea will sincerely hear the voices of civil society in order to strengthen accountability and transparency of its development cooperation. Guaranteeing the participation of NGOs in the process of building SDGs and preparing for the VNR is an example of this effort. With only 1 year left ahead of the comprehensive midterm review of the implementation of the SDGs next year, I believe that the forum can serve as an excellent opportunity for stake-taking of the SDGs in the region. I hope that we can pool our wisdom at this forum and join hands with each other in pursuit of the shared goal of transforming the Asia-Pacific region into a truly sustainable and resilient place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Park, for your interesting statement. Finally, I've been asked to share some experiences from my own country, Pakistan, on implementation of SDG 17s, with focusing on how we are financing our development. Let me just, make a brief statement. Executive Secretary Shamshad Akhtar, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to join you all at this important forum of our region. We see this forum as an immensely useful platform to share our perspectives on challenges and opportunities, as well as respective experiences in the implementation of 2030 agenda. Now more than ever, we require unwavering political will, both at the national and international levels, to ensure that we stay the course and no one is left behind. Strong and sustained economic growth is essential to achieve these ambitious goals. Economic growth needs to be complemented by social development. Such an approach necessitates synergies among key development priorities, including employment generation, energy security, demographic challenge, disaster risk reduction, and governance. Addressing systematic issues and structural constraints are equally important. Credible and realistic data would underpin our success. These are all critical enablers for success. And most importantly, we know from our national experience that meaningful implementation of and achieving SDG requires matching resources. This requires both fulfillment of financial commitments made by the developed countries and ensuring transparency of such support to the developing countries for climate action. And let me add here that my country contributes only 0.8% to global greenhouse emission, but it is amongst the top 7 countries which are most vulnerable for climate change. So making no contribution to the pollution, we are on the receiving end, we are at the risk because of the irresponsible development by the developed countries. So therefore, this is an obligation where developed countries have to make their support very responsible and loud. A rules-based, fair and equitable trading system is likewise essential to unlock the full development potential of the developing countries. Additional resource mobilization through cooperation with development partners and enhancing investment capabilities through attracting FDI inflows would also facilitate inclusive and sustainable growth and poverty eradication. Excellencies, development strategies remain first and foremost national undertakings. Eradication of poverty, hunger and disease, and provision of a better living are our abiding commitments to our people. For Pakistan, the Sustainable Development Goals complement our own development needs and priorities as articulated in Vision 2025, which was launched in 2014, but we had co-opted all the SDG goals in our vision. It provides a policy framework and a point of integration of SDGs in our national economic and development planning. Parliament has adopted SDGs as national development goals, and we have now built strong partnerships in the country with the private sector and different tiers of government, federal government, provincial government, and district and local governments to become partners for implementing SDGs. It is also a blueprint of our national commitment to the process, which is also evidenced by the recently approved National Framework on SDGs by National Economic Council, in which the federal government and the provinces take part. The government has initiated and is undertaking a series of wide-ranging reforms inter alia aimed at expanding the resource base, stemming illicit capital outflows and ensuring optimized use of existing resources. We have been able to double our tax collection in the last 4 years. That has helped us increase our development budget from rupees 300 billion to rupees 1 trillion, and bulk of it is going into areas relative to SDGs, and that has given us a big push. We are equally aware of the importance of a robust monitoring and follow-up mechanism for effective and full implementation of SDGs in Pakistan. Elaborate coordination and oversight procedures have been accordingly put in place at both the national and provincial level of governments, and we have periodic reviews on the progress. SDG units at the federal as well as the provincial levels have been set up in partnership with the UN and are leading this national effort. My government is also prioritizing low carbon and carbon resilient development solutions as part of our commitment to the global undertaking in combating climate change. The government has taken a number of concrete measures to promote clean energy through renewed focus on hydel, nuclear, wind and solar powered projects. Excellencies, our region, South Asia, is a sub-region of Asia Pacific, has the largest concentration of the poor in the world. While we follow our national development strategies to lift our people out of poverty, SDGs has provided an opportunity to all member states to tackle this common challenge in a collective manner. The challenge of poverty eradication in South Asia needs to be tackled by conceptualization at a broader level to provide opportunities to the people for betterment of their living standards and develop their capabilities to live a decent life. It is quite ironical that while the world is becoming more networked, more connected, politically it is becoming more fractured. And that is where we need to all apply our energies to make sure that at politics we also become collaborative and connected, just as the global economy is becoming and technology is connecting the world. To this end, building of inclusive transnational institutions and reforming existing ones, enhance inter- and intra-regional cooperation, higher level of economic integration, building knowledge corridors, and extending cross-border communication beyond conventional diplomacy and official communication could prove to be useful contributors. South Asia has immense opportunities of trade, investment, knowledge exchange, connectivity, and youthful populations to become the fastest growing region of the world. The real challenge is to unlock the huge potential of collaboration in order to alleviate poverty, build cross-regional infrastructure, protect the environment, and provide employment opportunities to the youth. This requires foresight, political will, and diplomatic engagement at an accelerated pace. The immense economic and social potential of SAARC needs to be leveraged as well. Pakistan is ready and willing to play its part in this transformative agenda of shared prosperity through connectivity and integration. Excellencies, as a demonstration of our commitment to these ideals, Pakistan has started the journey to prosperity by extending connectivity in the region. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, a $46 billion project, represents an opportunity for both Pakistan and the adjoining regions of South and Central Asia to collaborate. CPEC is also a good contemporary model of regional cooperation in several areas, including infrastructure, connectivity, energy, economic growth, employment creation, and social development through opportunities. We consider technology as a major challenge for future of an inclusive world because it can create new haves and have-nots. Therefore, government is actively working with private sector to improve connectivity and access of population to the new platform of development. And Pakistan has seen a dramatic increase in mobile broadband penetration over the past 5 years, with market penetration increasing from below 1% in 2012 to over 24% in 2017. Pakistan looks forward to working closely with Asia Pacific community in a collective partnership to promote our shared priorities, particularly collaborating to work on our readiness to meet challenges of fourth industrial revolution. We commend the strong role being played by ESCAP to foster greater cooperation within the Asia Pacific. Our journey does not stop here. It has only just begun. I thank you all.
Thank you. Your Excellency, thank you very much. Now, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and ladies and gentlemen, we maybe, Excellency, you have some comment, final comment?
With this, we will now move on to the statements by other countries and stakeholders. I am thus pleased to hand over to the Chair to continue steering the session and invite all speakers at the head table to return to their country seat.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Minister Iqbal. So, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to invite the distinguished delegates to intervene on agenda item number 2, regional perspectives on the follow-up and review of the 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development. I will first open the floor to statements from members and associate members and then permanent observers. Once all country statements have been made, I will invite statements from intergovernmental bodies, after which I will open the floor for representatives of UN organizations and specialized agencies, and finally, to designated representatives of civil society, major groups, and other stakeholders. I kindly remind delegates to reduce their statements to no longer than 3 minutes length to allow the delegates the opportunity to speak. To begin, I would like to open the floor for statements and views from government right now. I recognize distinguished delegate from Philippines.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you our progress and our views for this particular session, Progress and Implementation of SDG 17 and Promoting Means of Implementation. First of all, let me commend the work of the Secretariat and their report that comprehensively analyzed data, availability or unavailability in the region to serve as our basis in further enhancing statistical capacities to measure how we are progressing in meeting the SDGs. Mr. Chair, let me share that data and statistical needs is also an imperative concern in the Philippines. Based on our national assessment and the 244 global SDG indicators, 103 are classified under Tier 1, 59 are under Tier 2, 71 are under Tier 3, and 11 indicators are deemed not applicable to the country. This indicates that only 42% can be monitored and reported in terms of progress of SDG implementation. Development of methodology and data generation are crucial concerns for Tier 2 and Tier 3 to comprehensively track and review the country's progress. As we all know, the challenge extends beyond these numbers, as many of these indicators require further data disaggregation, example by income, sex, age, race, ethnicity, migratory status, disability, and geographic location. As basis in establishing baselines, developing and implementing targeted policies to address the well-being of the most vulnerable and marginalized population across sectors. We see that more action should be done by the Philippine statistical system to have this data in our midst. And indeed, our Philippine Statistical Authority is in the process of formulating a dedicated chapter on SDGs in the Philippine Statistical Development Program 2018-2023, aimed to provide vital information and support to progress monitoring of the Philippines' achievement of the SDGs. Specifically, PSA will establish a coordination mechanism for SDG monitoring, institute measures to address gaps in tiers 2 and 3, SDG indicators, harmonize surveys and administrative data, enhance capacity to generate disaggregated statistics, among others. Data from various initiatives of the private sector, civil society organizations, academia will be requested to enhance data collection. For the succeeding years, we envision to enhance integration of modern geospatial information and management systems, statistical metadata, and enhanced SDG data dissemination and communication strategies through enhancement of data visualization strategies and improvement of SDG metadata in interactive databases. Despite these efforts, there will remain large gaps in data collection and processing against global indicators. In this regard, the need to mobilize financial and technical support are wanting for the development of innovative data collection schemes, especially for those that would represent the more difficult social and environmental dimensions of the SDG. This is not to mention the need to disaggregate and to be more detailed. The current sparse data disaggregation may undermine our common goal to leave no one behind if not given adequate attention. Addressing this challenge of sparse data and missing indicators call for international and regional statistical institutions to provide concrete actions and clear guidance to countries in the development of methodology and standards to guide the collection process and dissemination of statistics and data for compiling these indicators. We encourage the continuous support to countries to not only fill up the data gaps, but also continuously improve on data quality. Accelerated technical and financial support will be needed. Mobilization of national budgets within the framework of national strategies for development of statistics will be one source, but in addition would be the support from donors, development partners to advance SDG implementation and monitoring. We urge, therefore, everyone to scale up partnership and cooperation to improve data ecosystem to inform evidence-based monitoring to fulfill our SDG commitments. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, a pleasant day to all colleague member states.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Philippines. And now I invite distinguished delegate from Japan. No? So we have next distinguished delegate from Fiji.
Thank you for giving me the floor, Chair. And I believe that my presentation and my deliberation will be on high-level panel transformation towards sustainable and resilient societies. That was discussed in session 1 of this agenda item 2. Transformation towards sustainable and resilient societies will result in the successful implementation of the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals. It is therefore important that at the regional level, all possible support should be given to member states to continuously transition and evolve towards resilient societies. In this regard, my delegation would like to thank ESCAP for the sub-regional consultation that were held last year. In particular, my delegation thanks the Pacific Sub-Regional Office in Suva for the Pacific Sub-Regional consultation that was held in Apia last year. In the context of resilience that is under discussion, we would like this platform, the APFSD, to continuously examine ways in which pathways to resilience are being shaped because these affect the broad spectrum of society. Certainly, in the case of Fiji, amongst other things, building resilience involves community capacity building as it relates to disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation, relocating communities due to the impact of climate change, community outreach on avoiding and reducing non-communicable disease, reforming our tax system to make it more progressive and transformative to enhance domestic resource mobilization, awareness programs on financial literacy to build financially resilient communities, continuously improving our social protection system in order to reach the furthest behind. These are some of the initiatives being undertaken to build a resilient Fiji. At the 4th APFSD, my delegation pointed out that the primary underlying reason for putting in place these measures remains climate change. At the COP23 in Bonn, Fiji's ever climate vulnerability assessment, Making Fiji Climate Resilient, was launched. It provides significant new analysis of Fiji's vulnerability in climate change, with projection outlining potential impacts for Fiji over the coming decades, covering the impact of climate change on Fiji's economy, livelihoods, poverty levels, health and food security, together with key industries including agriculture and tourism, as well as potential impacts of sea level rise on coastal areas and low-lying islands. The vulnerability assessment acknowledges the need for Fiji to strengthen resilience as a development strategy, otherwise our long-term development will be under threat. In line with this, Fiji is engaging its development partners and also leveraging existing platforms such as these in order to mobilize the means of implementation. Not all member countries are the same in terms of resilience. Some are better at withstanding and recovering from plausible hazards. But our commonalities being asked together in this region, the regional roadmap for implementing the sustainable development in Asia and the Pacific remains an important tool for addressing this. The means of implementation and partnership and the thematic areas needs to be actualized and also reviewed if we as a region are to progress while leaving no one behind. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, distinguished delegate from Fiji. And now I invite distinguished delegate from Russian Federation. Please.
Спасибо, господин председатель. Поскольку я уже имел возможность в рамках предыдущей дискуссии представить в общем виде нашу работу по формированию показателей устойчивого развития, я бы хотел сейчас остановиться на перспективных направлениях работы нашей страны в контексте реализации цели устойчивого развития номер 17. В настоящее время политика России в сфере содействия устойчивому развитию выстраивается в соответствии с положениями концепции государственной политики в сфере содействия международному развитию. Важным принципом содействия является приверженность России приоритетам устойчивого развития государств, получателей помощи. Это концентрация усилий для достижения конкретных результатов в борьбе с бедностью, неравенством, взаимодействие с государственными партнерами в сфере содействия международному развитию в целях повышения доверия, взаимного уважения, обеспечения прозрачности и подотчетности. В целом, эти же принципы лежат в основе повестки устойчивого развития. Поэтому можно говорить, что деятельность России по реализации ЦУР-17 начинается не с чистого листа, а является логическим продолжением работы, которая началась около 10 лет назад. Россия, как участник международного сообщества, демонстрирует солидарность в решении глобальных вопросов, подтверждает приверженность целям развития и оказывает разностороннее содействие, как в международных форматах, так и на двусторонней основе. Вместе с тем очевидно, что текущая неустойчивая экономическая ситуация в мире не позволяет рассматривать нам в ближайшие годы сценарии дальнейшего увеличения объемов российской помощи развитию, которая в последние годы составляет порядка $1 миллиарда США. И в этих условиях фокус необходимо перемещать в сферу повышения эффективности и результативности усилий в этой области, придание российской помощи более каталитической роли. Российская помощь развитию охватывает широкий круг направлений, включая продовольственную безопасность, управление государственными финансами, повышение институционального потенциала, образование и формирование систем социальной поддержки, борьбу с заболеваниями. Каждая из этих инициатив в отдельности важна и полезна, но нужно признать, что решения по этим проектам необходимо переводить в системный подход. И в этом контексте мы системный подход собираемся продвигать и дальше, предусматривая при этом формирование страновых и отраслевых стратегических приоритетов на среднесрочной основе. И первым шагом в этом направлении может стать запуск уже в этом году страновых программ содействия для наиболее важных стратегических партнеров России. При этом мы считаем не менее важной составляющей работы это совершенствование механизма мониторинга и оценки результативности российских мероприятий в области содействия развитию. Мы собираемся при разработке стратегий учитывать следующие тематические приоритеты которые согласованы с нашими партнерами в помощи развитию. Это система государственного управления, улучшение условий для торгово-инвестиционной деятельности, обеспечение доступа к важнейшим источникам жизнедеятельности, это вода, электроэнергия, продовольственная безопасность, сельскохозяйственное развитие, здравоохранение, социальная защита, качество и доступность образования. Мы также собираемся продолжать работу по улучшению статистики и отчетности мониторинга на основе потенциала сотрудничества с Россией, Всемирного банка, Межгосударственного комитета Содружества независимых государств, а также наших партнеров из региональных организаций, в которых участвует Россия. Спасибо.
Thank you very much, Russian Federation. Now I invite distinguished delegate from India, please.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak on behalf of my country. I would be speaking on the theme of the forum, Transformation Towards Sustainable and Resilient Societies. India's National Development Agenda is mirrored in the Sustainable Development Goals. The principle of Sabka Saath Sabka Vikas, which translate as collective effort, inclusive growth, guide all the developmental interventions of the Government of India. I would now like to mention some of the important initiatives taken by the Government of India for the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals. All SDGs have been mapped on central ministries, central sponsored schemes, and other governmental initiatives. Subnational government have undertaken similar mapping. Through 20 national and subnational consultations, stakeholders like central ministries, subnational government, civil society organizations, academia, international organizations have been sensitized and mobilized. National SDG indicators have been developed. Certain subnational governments have also developed their own local specific indicators. A national task force with participation of central ministries, subnational governments, and think tanks has been set up to periodically review the progress. Subnational governments have also set up their coordination mechanism, including dedicated cells and centers of excellence. A countrywide capacity development process is being initiated. Central ministries and subnational governments are integrating the SDG modules into their existing training programs. Niti Aayog, a national think tank, is documenting and sharing the best practices on SDGs. I would now highlight some of the major interventions for transformation towards sustainable and resilient societies. In its all-out war against poverty, India focuses on economic growth to boost income of the poor. Access to basic services, education, health, sanitation, food security, housing, etc., has been substantially improved. For example, it is aimed to achieve open defecation-free India by 2019 and housing for all by 2022. The initiative of Ayushman Bharat extends health protection to 100 million vulnerable families to the extent of rupees 500,000, $7692 each. National Disaster Management Plan integrates the Sendai framework and details out strategic measures for prevention, mitigation, and preparedness. Under the Swachh Bharat mission, that is Clean India mission, rural sanitation coverage increased from 38.7% to 79% between 2014 and 18. Dependency on biomass for cooking is fast reducing, while targeting 80 million women from poor families during 2016 to 19 under the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, 34 million liquefied petroleum gas connections have already been given. Against a target of generating 175 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2022, installed capacity has grown by 63% from 2015 to 2017. India is well set to meet its national determined contribution target of 40% cumulative electric power installed capacity from non-fossil fuel-based energy resources by 2030. Energy-efficient solutions has led to saving of 36.45 billion kilowatt-hour of energy and reduction in greenhouse gas emission by 29.53 million tons of CO2 during the period 2015 to 2017. India has facilitated the formation of International Solar Alliance involving 121 countries. As of now, 61 countries have signed the framework agreement and 32 have ratified it. The Government of India is implementing several missions under National Action Plan on Climate Change. Under the National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture, climate adaptive strategies are being implemented to sustain agriculture productivity. India being highly biodiverse, the country is consistently striving to ensure conservation of terrestrial ecosystem by administration of protected areas, conservation, and management through various missions and programs, support to research and control of illegal wildlife trade.
Yes, time please.
Over 2015 to 2017, biennial forest surveys by Forest Service India have found an increase of forest cover by 6,778 square kilometers, that is about 1%, and very dense forest cover by 9,526 square kilometers, that's about 14.2%, which indicates qualitative improvement as well. This is in keeping with the nationally determined contribution communicated to UNFCCC, that is enhancing carbon sink by additionally 2.5 to 3.0 billion tons of CO2 equivalent through additional tree cover by 2030. Thus, India is taking multi-pronged measures towards improving resilience and sustainability. I thank you once again, Chair, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, distinguished delegate from India, and I kindly remind all delegates to reduce statements to no longer than 3 minutes, please. And now we have Bangladesh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me providing this statement. I was also supposed to provide this statement in the first session, where the topic was transformation towards sustainable and resilient societies. So this is carried over to this session. Building resilience in Bangladesh. Resilience is about coping up with economic, environmental, climate, and psychological adversity. Bangladesh is a country with a history of building resilience against disaster and climate change. While resilience is embedded in the culture of people, there has been a growing concern of how to build sustainable society which will not only care for the social, economic, and environmental pillars, but also look into institutional aspects upon which sustainability will be cemented. The government is taken to build a more resilient and prosperous society by taking up the following steps. Just I will highlight the steps, not elaborating because of time constraint. The steps are integrating resilient building in planning system, improving governance and capacity of institutions, use of ICT across all levels, mainstreaming climate change, environment, and disaster management in policy, planning, and projects, enforcing laws on environment safeguard and protection, allocating resources for fighting climate change, adopting renewable energy with aim to attain 10% of supply from renewable source, investing in public health, transformation from an agriculture-based economy in terms of employment to a more manufacturing service sector-based one, implementing social safety net for the distressed, disadvantaged, and extreme poor people, covering 25% of the poor right now, empowering women by providing opportunities for them, developing rural infrastructure, particularly connecting the villages with growth centers and nearest cities and towns, introducing broad-based participatory system in disaster management, focusing on water management and maintaining ecosystem services, strengthening local government in development process, promoting people's participation, facilitating innovation of climate-resilient varieties in agriculture, particularly having stress-tolerant varieties. However, the government can further strengthen its efforts for achieving a more result-oriented outcomes. How? By protecting ecosystem and nature, enhancing enforcement for pollution control, reducing economic inequality, improving transparency and inclusiveness, engaging private sector in management and environment, conservation and management of water bodies, wetlands, promoting activities for cleaner and greener cities, developing coastal greenbelt with mangrove species and building sea defenses, introducing energy efficient, affordable technology, expanding forest resource, make the forest adequately productive, conserving non-renewable resources, and sustaining auto and eco-generation of renewable resources, promoting implementation of Bangladesh Delta Plan 2100. It's a 100 plan for Bangladesh, which strategizes and investment plans centering water resources, introducing climate proofing of structures for the areas of climate risk. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Bangladesh. Now I invite distinguished delegate from Thailand, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Thai government, I'm glad to share Thailand's perspective in this session. 2 years have passed since the adoption of the 2030 Agenda. The world community has witnessed strong efforts to achieve all the goals and targets of the SDGs. Thailand attaches great importance to the attainment of the 2030 Agenda. And as my minister has remarked in his opening statement this morning, we need better action to achieve the SDGs. To ensure better progress in the implementation of SDG 17 and effective promoting means of implementation, Thailand has created partnership both in the country and with other countries as follows. First, in the country, we have forged partnership in the form of stakeholders' engagement. Thailand believes that sustainable development can be achieved only when it is inclusive and responsive to the needs of people in every corner of our society. The Thai government has therefore applied a whole-of-government and whole-of-society approach to ensure that all stakeholders are engaged in Thailand's development efforts, including civil society, business sector, academia, media, and youth. An enabling environment has been created so that all stakeholders can work together, which will then lead to mutual trust and understanding. One concrete example is the establishment of a social enterprise called Pracharat Rak Samakhi in each province nationwide. Each social enterprise is made up of various stakeholders, public, private, academia, civil society, and the locals, who come to work together towards the goal of sufficiency living. The company helped the people develop their own livelihood and market their products to customers nationwide. This will increase the value of the product and the income of the local communities. To promote a bottom-up approach in sustainable development, the Thai government is also focusing on the process of localizing the SDGs so that the local community can voice their needs and opinions. We believe that enhancing prosperity in all provinces nationwide requires all parties to work together in order to identify development priorities of each area. Recently, the Thai government announced a development program called Thai Niyom Yang Yun, or Sustainable Thainess Development Program, to serve this particular purpose. The program sets up committees from central government to local level with participation of local communities and seeks to improve the livelihood of the people. Mr. Chair, apart from creating partnership in our own country, as I just mentioned, Thailand deemed it important to have an integrated global partnership with effective means of implementation and strong accountability mechanisms that could respond to global challenges. We are ready to work with other countries, including to share our homegrown development approach, the sufficiency economy philosophy, or SEP, as a practical and universal approach towards achieving the SDGs. SEP focuses on people and strives to create a mindset for inclusive, balanced, and sustainable development. The Thai government has cooperated with other countries through our SEP for SDGs Partnership Initiative, which now sees projects on the ground in more than 20 developing countries, helping to transform the people's mindset and create a better livelihood. We have also presented our VNR last year at the HLPF. And we are pleased also to share our experience in making the VNR during session 5 of the APFSD, which is scheduled for tomorrow. In the meantime, you can get a copy of our VNR report and learn more about the SEP for SDGs Partnership Initiative from our booth just outside of this room. Mr. Chair, on the last note, I wish to reiterate once again that only through the powerful and inclusive partnership between all parts of society and at every level, be it local, provincial, national, regional, and global, can the world move toward a truly inclusive and sustainable development for all. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Thailand. And now I invite distinguished delegates from Myanmar, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the floor. It is a great honor for me to participate in this very auspicious event on behalf of the government of Myanmar. This forum is the symbol of unity in making progress together in sharing fruits of development as we are striving for at both national and regional levels. Myanmar fully recognizes the important role of the Asia-Pacific collaboration and the role of ESCAP. We all witnessed some progress within these 3 years of the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. However, we still have a long way to reaching our goal of eradicating poverty and leaving no one behind. The task ahead is harder as we are overcoming daunting challenges of sluggish economy, downward ODA trends, unprecedented rate and scale of natural disaster. Excellency, distinguished delegate, Myanmar attaches great importance to the effective implementation of SDG as it plays a significant role in assisting national endeavors for socio-economic development in the developing country. Myanmar has been undertaking its best efforts to develop the National Comprehensive Development Plan, annual and 5-year midterm plan, strategic plan for the region and sector-wise, making them to be in line with the SDG. Myanmar's Central Statistical Organization, CSO, is acting as the national focal point for SDG and has already engaged with the assessment on national statistical system by setting up the SDG indicator. However, there are more room for development in the statistical system of Myanmar in collecting data and to achieve SDGs. Myanmar delegation is of the view that the availability of funding is essential for effective implementation of the SDG. Myanmar would like to urge the development partners to maintain and substantially increase their assistance and voluntary contribution. Myanmar is committed to working with all partners to ensure of the international assistance brings maximum benefits to the people. Myanmar Development Assistance Policy has officially launched early this month to ensure comprehensive policy guidance for the effectiveness of development assistance. Myanmar's SDG Baseline Indicator Report has launched as a result of the hard work between the CSO, Central Statistical Organization, under the Ministry of Planning and Finance and the UNDP. As Myanmar is committed to the pursuit of the 2030 SDG agenda, Myanmar's Sustainable Development Plan, MSDP, is under the intensive consultation with multi-stakeholders throughout the country. It would be evidently seen that an MSDP is integrated with the SDG and its targets. Moreover, Myanmar and the UN country team in Myanmar are jointly formulating the UN Development Assistance Framework UNDAF to set out overall cooperation between Myanmar and the UN. The government of Myanmar is striving to have the right balance between economic development and environmental protection, as well as to strengthen the resilience of our people in all its forms. Excellency, distinguished delegates, Myanmar has successfully convened the third Asia-Pacific Water Forum from 11 to 12 December 2017 by inviting 48 leaders from the 48 countries. It provided a platform where our partners in the Asia and the Pacific region can share their experiences over water-related enterprises and conceive better ideas for integrated water resources management. Furthermore, it contributes to the implementation of SDG 6. The overarching Myanmar national water law is in the process of drafting with the assistance of a World Bank, and it will be put into a public consultation process very soon. Our government continue providing better security and developing the necessary policy and legal framework for water-related investment to flourish in this country, in our country. Myanmar has been making its best effort to achieve SDG 7 by striving to put in place a series of rural electrification schemes, including various renewable energy options such as solar energy, wind farms, biomass, thermochemical energy, and mini hydro. With the support of the World Bank, Myanmar has developed National Electrification Plan, which is expected to bring electricity to more than 7.2 million homes by 2030. Excellency and distinguished delegates, last but not least, I would like to state that Myanmar will focus on people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership towards an inclusive and robust development path to achieve 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Myanmar reiterates its readiness to work closely with the international community to ensure that no one is left behind. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Myanmar. Now I invite distinguished delegate from Nepal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for giving me the floor. At the outset, I take this opportunity to congratulate both the co-chairs and all the vice chairs on their election to the Bureau and wish you all success in guiding the forum to a successful conclusion. I also appreciate the excellent arrangements made by the Secretariat for this forum. Mr. Chairman, as we are now considering SDG 17 and promoting means of implementation, I'll try to limit my statement to this agenda. Nepal is committed to pursuing and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Last year, we prepared a comprehensive SDG Voluntary National Review Report and also the draft SDGs Needs Assessment, Costing and Financing Strategy, which estimated the financial requirement for the SDGs implementation. Nepal is in LDC and LLDC, thus a country with special needs. Countries like ours are not in a position to mobilize on their own the resources, expertise, and technologies to achieve SDGs by 2030. Therefore, we are encouraged by the determination of the international community to mobilize the means required to implement the development agenda through a revitalized global partnership focused in particular on the needs of poorest and the most vulnerable countries. At national level, we are trying our best and have made good progress towards mobilizing internal resources. The periodic plans and annual budgets have already begun to reorient policy and budget priorities to reflect our commitments to achieve the SDGs. Nepal's tax effort is relatively strong, as revenue collection stood at nearly 20% of the GDP in 2015. The target for revenue collection for 2030 is set at 30% of the GDP. Domestic government expenditure, financed by internal revenue, is targeted to reach 80% by 2030. Partnerships are being strengthened with the private sector, cooperatives, civil society, development partners, and the international community as a whole to effectively implement plans and programs for realizing the development goals. As adequate finance, technology, institutions, and capacity are vital for achieving the SDGs, we have realized that there is a big gap between the currently available resources and financing the achievement of the SDGs. Besides, Nepal needs technological support, including smart technology for small-scale agro-based entrepreneurs and low-carbon emission engineering for its industries. Efficient construction technology also needed for building large hydropower projects, new international airports, roads, bridges, apartments, and railways. The resource targets at this stage appear modest because the scaled-up public investment drive to redress critical infrastructure gaps will require large amount of external resources, in addition to strong domestic revenue collection. We have also found that to meet the private sector investment financing gap, foreign direct investment needs to multiply at least 5-fold from present level. Mr. Chairman, our domestic efforts will have to be meaningfully complemented by our partners in regional and international levels. Besides our development partners in the region and beyond, we also expect realistic and meaningful cooperation from international financial mechanisms and initiatives. To meet our requirements, we feel that the global commitments, especially in trade facilitation, aid, investment promotion, technology transfer, and financing for development of LDCs should be fulfilled by the development partners. These measures will strengthen our ability to effectively implement our plans and programs for achieving the SDGs and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development as committed by the international community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Nepal. And now I invite delegate from Sweden, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Sweden, as a development cooperation partner to Asia Pacific, would like to highlight the importance of participation in building resilience for sustainable development. Resilience is key to sustainable development in Asia and the Pacific. Currently, resilience is not keeping pace with the shocks, and the space for participation is shrinking. Meeting these challenges will require transformations for our societies, built on deep social engagement and broad-based support of all stakeholders. True resilience for everyone can only be achieved through participatory, inclusive processes. The risks to people in the region are not distributed or shared equally across groups in the society. Women, people in poverty, and those who are marginalized are vulnerable, disproportionately affected by risks and the lack of resilience in communities, societies, or regions. Other traditionally disadvantaged groups, such as indigenous population, minorities, the elderly and children, persons with disabilities, and migrants are especially exposed. The same risk-exposed people also tend to lack voice and representation in the decision-making processes that affect the situation. Development decisions are often made without involvement of the people most affected. In many places, a democratic deficit, shrinking civil society space, discrimination and lack of gender equality, and respect for human rights limit people's ability to demand accountability and to participate in decision-making for resilience building and sustainable development. While the Asia-Pacific region is, by many accounts, the most risk-prone part of the world, the region is at the same time in the position to be a world leader in resilience building and to spearhead participatory approaches for sustainable development and the fulfillment of Agenda 2030. So what can be done? Governments, as the duty bearers, need to find ways to facilitate broad participation by the right holders of the societies to build resilience. And there are many good reasons and benefits to do so. Participation does not only help to fulfill human rights, such as freedom of expression and the right to information, there is also broad evidence that engagement of stakeholders in policy processes and discourses leads to better policies and outcomes. Policies and plans based on all stakeholders' risks analysis, perspectives, and knowledge will lead to more relevant solutions and sustainable results. If decisions are made with people instead of for people, there will be better ownerships which strengthen sustainability. There is a need for more research and evidence building around the benefits of participation for sustainable development, especially quantifiable information. It is important for governments to define what participation is and what the dimension of effective engagement are and how to conduct engagement processes for resilient building. There will be no one way to do it. Context and level-specific solutions are necessary. Nonetheless, participation shall never be forced. It should be free and meaningful. And building resilience is a multi-stakeholder and multi-level endeavor. Diversity of stakeholders and perspectives is a power to be harnessed. Developing innovative communication methods and tools to reach communities and stakeholders who are normally left behind is critical for ensuring meaningful participation. Free media is also vital for facilitating informed participatory development processes and promote collective learning on emerging risks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sweden. And now, as I don't have any more organizations in my list, I will open the floor for intergovernmental organizations, and we have a representative from International Civil Aviation Organization, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the international air transport sector directly and indirectly supports the employment of some 62 million people worldwide. It contributes approximately $2.7 trillion in global GDP and moves about 4.1 billion people per year and over a third of world freight by value per year. Air transport in the Asia Pacific supports 28.8 million jobs and 626 billion in GDP. I might add, the Asia Pacific is forecast to have the fastest rate of growth in this sector. International civil aviation is one of the foundations that supports socioeconomic development, global interconnectivity, and international development. While transport and the international civil aviation sector do not have a dedicated SDG, they're both vital enablers of the 2030 agenda. I suspect that most of us took airplanes, flew across oceans, continents, and countries, and landed safely in airports to be able to discuss this week in person the regional progress towards the SDG implementation in preparation for the July high-level political review. Through ICAO's normative work, its technical cooperation and technical assistance, we serve the people of the world in facilitating international civil aviation as a sector that's safe, secure, efficient, economically viable, and environmentally responsible. In 2017, we unpacked the linkages between the organization, ICAO's strategic planning process, and the 2030 agenda. And we mapped 15 of the 17 SDGs where aviation can directly support the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And we've reoriented our work program so that it provides more robust support to the achievement of the SDGs. International civil aviation also plays an essential role in supporting assistance to states and regions affected by natural disasters. And as was stated a few times, the Asia-Pacific countries are at high risk for natural disasters. Air transport has proven to be a catalyst for sustainable development as it serves as the main mode of transportation to deliver humanitarian relief, particularly to landlocked developing countries and small island developing states. In fact, aviation is literally a lifeline in times of disaster to Pacific small island developing states and landlocked countries. Airports have become staging points for first responders, relief supplies, cargo deliveries, and refugee transfers. As a consequence, several of the ICAO normative standards stipulate requirements and standards for states related to emergency planning and disaster relief. And in recognizing that the severity and the rate of occurrence of natural disasters is increasing, just last year, ICAO adopted a disaster risk reduction strategy to better support our member states in building resilient aviation infrastructure that can serve humanity following natural disasters. The aviation sector looks forward to our continued partnership to ensure that aviation continues to serve the Asia-Pacific in our joint efforts in achieving resilient and sustainable development. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, representative of International Civil Aviation Organization, and I will now open the floor for the major groups, and we have a consolidated statement from civil society delivered by Michael Beltran. Kadamay, please.
Good afternoon. I represent Kadamay from the Philippines and the Urban Poor constituency of APRSM, and I will read an excerpt from the consolidated statement from the CSO Forum. We, the people and CSOs of Asia and the Pacific, met and discussed multiple dimensions of the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs at the People's Forum on Sustainable Development 2018, with emphasis on defending the environment and redefining resilience. We are more than 200 CSOs representing various constituencies and concerns, bound together by the commitment to strengthen the interlinkages among rights, development, and ensure prioritized attention for the marginalized. In all areas of SDG implementation, we demand immediate action and attention to grassroots constituencies, including indigenous peoples, women, farmers, workers, fisherfolk, urban poor, LGBTQI, people living with HIV/AIDS, aging people, youth, migrants, disabled, and Dalit populations. While we note and appreciate the progress on implementing the SDGs, we are concerned by several factors underpinning the implementation of the Agenda 2030 in the region. Asia-Pacific has witnessed rapid growth, which has brought down poverty to some extent. However, many countries have a long way to go before they can be sustainable, and the region achieves the critical SDG goals. We strongly recommend that resilience be redefined by underpinning it with people's priorities, development justice, the 5 transformative shifts that underscore it, and along the lines of the following. In light of the vulnerability of communities due to poverty and human rights violations from both non-state and state actors, from the perspective of workers, most of whom are affected by lowered labor standards, in light of poor communities dependent on natural resources who are witnessing the erosion of their livelihoods, to sound a caution on the faith in big technology far removed from participation of people, the unequal power structures at all levels in aid and trade policies which favor powerful countries and multinationals at the expense of people. And unless we do all of this, defending the environment and achieving sustainability will be an exercise in futility. One of the most compelling concerns in the region is the increasing human rights violations among frontline environment defenders. Indigenous people, peasants, fisherfolk, urban poor, women and children are being driven out from their communities by large-scale corporate projects. Lands and resources are being plundered in the name of a profit-driven neoliberal economic model. Another major concern is making cities sustainable. More and more people are ending up in slums and unlivable areas. We must call attention to the problems plaguing rural areas. Unless their issues including agriculture, natural resources, access to education, energy, water, health, shelter, and gender dimensions are addressed, handling urbanization may be extremely difficult. An integrated approach is essential to the achievement of this goal. Through linking other goals such as poverty eradication, food security, and the provision of other key services, such as health, education, water and energy, climate change and disaster risk, employment and industrialization, biodiversity, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Additional statements will follow tomorrow, so I would like to thank all delegates for their insightful and interesting remarks. And with this, we conclude session number 2. And we will now proceed to session 3, which will be held in breakout rooms. And I understand the MC will guide us into the next session. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, in our next session we will break into parallel round tables for in-depth review of SDGs 6, 7, 11, 12 and 15. Each of the cluster goals will be discussed in a separate room. Roundtable on SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, will convene in meeting room A. The roundtable on SDG 7, affordable and clean energy, will take place in meeting room F. Roundtable on SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities, in meeting room G. Roundtable SDG 12, sustainable consumption and production, meeting room H. Roundtable on SDG 15, life on land, in the public foyer. All meeting rooms are on the first floor, the public foyer is on the ground floor. Kindly note the location of the roundtable you would like to attend or have registered for, and make your way there immediately following this session. The conclusions of each roundtable will be shared in plenary tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. After the roundtable discussions, we cordially invite all participants to join a reception for the launch of the SDG Partnership Report, developed jointly by the Asian Development Bank, the UN Development Programme and ESCAP. The reception will take place from 6:15 in the cafeteria on the first floor. Thank you. I wish you fruitful discussions. Kindly make your way to the roundtable discussions without delay. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Minister. Except if you want to join one of the round tables.
No, we had a meeting with the Prime Minister.
Proceed, please proceed.
Delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the roundtable discussions have already started. Kindly do make your way down to the correct rooms. You will find them on the screens here. SCG 6, meeting room A, SCG 7, meeting room F, SCG 11, meeting room G, SCG 12, meeting room H, SCG 15 in the public foyer downstairs on the ground floor.
Yes, I get that a lot. Compared to the big countries, we're 3 meters. There was last year, there was a cyclone around 40% of our population was displaced, just from the edge of the city. But if cyclone the whole island. But yeah, we're very... No, we haven't experiences. Just depending on climate change and the frequency of natural disasters such as tsunamis and yeah, it's a disaster. That's why we can do it. It's a beautiful country.
There's also just the one tiny door people come.
Could you please tell the minister's name? Today's morning he inaugurated program, no?
Which minister?
Thailand minister.
Sorry.
Thailand minister.
It's in the program.
Today morning he attended, no?
Yes, in the opening. It's in the program.
Maybe his name.
Yeah, I don't know it by heart because it's quite a long name, but just go online in the program. It's right there that it's spelled correctly.
You have this program on him?
Do we have the program here? The names? So they have. It's easiest to take the APFSD website because there it has the right name.
I want to know the name of the minister who inaugurated the program in Thailand. This morning, opening.
We encourage all participants, also civil society and intergovernmental bodies, to join one of the roundtable discussions. get the name? Sorry, I just don't have it. Thank you.
ที่พีพับปิดเหมือนกันใช่ไหมถ้าพี่จะต้องเช็คอ่ะก็เซฟไว้ที่พีพับปิดเหมือนกันน้องเขาหมายต้องเป็นของเขาอ๋อยังใช่ไหมแต่ก็หมดแล้วเนาะครับหมดแล้วครับอันนี้เหรอที่พี่เอาไปได้ยังไม่ได้รวมนี่รวมกับ2อันที่ผมบอก
ที่ทั้งหมดแล้วก็คือ
เอาไปสแกนให้หน่อยเสร็จแล้วใส่ว่าเป็นใส่ว่าเซสชั่น2แพนเนลลิสต์แล้วก็ใส่ชื่อประเทศเดี๋ยวพี่ลองพี่นายเครื่องนั้นเข้ากี่เขาติดได้ครับเครื่องนี้ต้องล็อกอินที่พี่ไงแล้วค่อยเข้านั่นแล้วตอนนี้พี่ใส่เป็น CMU ไม่ใช่เวลาก็ได้แต่ต้องเอาแต่ว่าเครื่องหลังก็ได้นะแต่ต้องเขาทำงานจะต้องทำใส่ไฟเด็กอันนี้ถ่ายให้ด้วยได้ไหมได้แต่พี่รอของทำนี้ได้ของพวกนี้อันนี้เขาพูดอย่างนี้แต่เดี๋ยวเขาไม่ได้ใช่ไหม
เข้าได้ครับ
ไปแล้วเหรอแต่แล้วเดี๋ยวสมมติถ้ามีคนมาช่วยไลน์บอกด้วยกันเดี๋ยวออดิโอก็อีกครึ่งชั่วโมงนี่ครับกำลังไปตรวจให้สรุปว่าเขาไม่ให้พูดเราก็คือไม่ได้พูดแบบเป็นง่ายๆที่สื่อไม่ได้พูดวันนี้เขาอินเตอร์นั่นอินเตอร์เทเจอร์นี่เขากลับเร็วมากเลยมันต้องโป๊กับพรุ่งนี้มั้งนะถ้าตรวจพรุ่งนี้ไม่เสร็จแล้วเขาก็จะบอกไม่ได้ทำรายการแล้วเวลาพอตัวอย่างนี้เขาเคยบอกในครั้งนี้ก็บอกว่าแต่ว่านี้ตอนเลิกงานเราเริ่มสายนะเขาบอกนั่นไม่นะก็อย่างนี้เราไม่มี
อันนี้คือประเทศไหนเขาไม่บอกประเทศไหนบอกแต่สาวเลยชื่อ
มันมีอะไรบ้างนะออสเตรเลีย
เกาหลี
เวียดนามปะนี่คือฟิลิปปินส์เขาจะมีสองอันเขาเหมือนเขาขอพูดเซสชั่น1และเซสชั่น2แต่ว่าตอนที่พูดในเนี้ยมันรวมกันไม่รู้ว่าไหนใช่ไหม
เรียกพวกมันเลย
เรียบร้อยอันนั้นแต่แล้วเหรอ
ยังครับอันนั้นต้องเป็นรวมครับ
แล้วเหรอ
หน้าหลัง
อันนี้ไม่ได้เหรอ
มันหน้าหลัง
เป็นหน้าหลังอยู่ที่ใครอยู่ที่น้องเขาหรอ
อะไรครับกระดาษใช่ไหมครับให้พี่ไปแล้วเมื่อกี้
อันนี้จะใส่ใช่แชร์พูดเหมือนกับว่าแชร์พูดเหมือนกับว่าพวกนี้เดี๋ยวไปคอนทินิวพรุ่งนี้เธอสเตทเมนต์อยู่ก่อนขอเรา จบมีเวลาเหลือค่อยมาพูดเปลี่ยนสีชั้นเพราะไม่งั้นเพราะคนไหนเคยได้ยินว่าบางคนเหมือนกับบางงานอันนี้เขาก็จะตัดอยู่CSO นะเขาให้อันนี้ของพี่นะพี่ก็ต้องจากunder APFSD ที่โพเดียมนั่นคนเทคเขาจะมาเอาครบแล้วเหรอไม่ครบหรอกก็ไม่ครบอีกเรียนเขาบอกหน่อยว่าให้หน่อยไปตามแต่ก็บอกว่าปกติทุกท่านตามให้ได้ไหมเพราะว่านี่เป็นกับคุณก็เป็นคนเชิญมาเขาบอกว่าบางทีฉันอาจจะไม่มีเวลาตามก็ไม่มีเหมือนกันไม่ทันนะคะเขาไม่บอกตั้งแต่แรกใช่ไหมเขาต้องบอกตั้งแต่แรกพอจบปุ๊บเราก็จะได้วิ่งในตอนนี้กันไม่ลงเลยพอตอนนั้นมันชุ่มวุ่นแล้วแหละพอเขาลงปั๊บไอ้นี่ก็ต้องขึ้นเลยพี่พอนี้ต้องขึ้นแล้วยังจะเปลี่ยนออเดอร์อะไรก็วุ่นวายหมดหันกลับมาอีกทีหนึ่งแล้วไปหมดแล้วขึ้นไปเดี๋ยวฉันต้องรีบทุกคนจะต้องตะลุมมาลุมตุ้มแล้วบอกอย่าเพิ่งขึ้นเลยให้มันเสร็จเรียบร้อยก่อน
จะไปห้องลาเทเบิลกัน
กระจายรูปดับไปหมดเลย
ครับก็จะเดินตามห้